Hello people, I'm Angelo and welcome to my quick easy fix for Undisputed. This is a short list, a quick list of stuff I've noted down over these past few days, just whenever it came to mind. It didn't really take long to make these lists. In total, I believe I spent like 15 minutes at most on this list now. Because anytime a thought came to mind, I would immediately just go, boom, new idea, let's write it down. It'd take like a minute to write each idea. And I got around about 12 ideas, so let's just get right into it and not stall and have like a 10-minute intro. So here we go, starting off with the biggest one, which is punches. In a real fight, you're not going to be seeing individually more than like 300 punches, or maybe 360 at a push. Because there's a thing known as conditioning or arm durability, where if you keep throwing punches endlessly, you'll start to feel strain underneath your bicep, underneath your armpit, along your, like, pectoral, close to the shoulder, where you'll start to feel wear and tear in the muscle, and the joints will start to groan because you've been overthrowing. Your body doesn't like to keep doing stuff without proper rest and proper heedance to your physical needs. So generally you'll see in a fight a lot of posturing at times because they're recovering from their punches and from their exchanges, and you'll see them sort of sizing up and fainting and sort of doing all these weird head movements where they're sort of trying to like get their opponent to fall into something so they could do a quick counter without having to throw that many punches. Which is why generally it's not often either you'll see these big flowy exchanges just constantly happening. It'll sort of be maybe like in the later rounds you'll see it like 3-4 times, and then you won't see it again, and it'll then just be more 1-2s. Or even just single punch counters when someone comes in. And then eventually someone will probably take the lead and either get a knockout or they'll win on points or however it is. So realistically, the way to fix this... Sorry, I had to pause for a second there. My throat went weird. But no, the realistic way to fix this is to change how stamina works by making it so punches will average around 28 to 36 punches per round, because generally when I play online or even offline, punches are up there in the high 80, 90, or even sometimes I'll see like 100 punches for 3 rounds in a row from a single person. And I'm like, that makes no sense, especially when they still have like 40 stamina going into round 5. And I'm like, you just threw 100 punches in a row, 3 rounds in a row, and you have that much stamina left? That's ridiculous. So realistically speaking, the way to make this balanced is pretty much to, first of all, take average punch stamina and lower that down. Just in general, make it so you can't just flurry constantly. There has to be moments where you sort of wait and you patient and you aren't just blitzing out every 2 seconds. And if you do that, you get more long-term consequences in terms of your stamina. So it's actually encouraged to play smarter, to play more clinically, to pay attention to what you're doing, pay attention to your stamina, paying attention to how much you're throwing, and keeping track of your own actions as well as your opponent's actions. Which makes it fall more into a realistic sense, because if you're just going out there winging 50 power punches per round, you're going to be gassed by round 3. Let's be honest here. Like Mike Tyson, legend he is, was known to have a bit of a stamina issue if you took him into the deep water rounds. If you're going past round 6, he started to show the cardio issues. So in an 8-rounder, you should not have 50 stamina. If you're just winging by round 5 or round 4, you shouldn't have like 60 plus stamina. You should be in that 40 stamina, 30 stamina, 20 stamina, and I think you should be even able to go down to 10 stamina in certain cases, because I always find that weird looking at 20 stamina. Seems kind of unrealistic. Sometimes you do just overthrow to the point where you can't throw no more, and you're just completely vulnerable, and you're just completely, completely unable to defend yourself because you're just so gassed, and at that point you're just easy pickings to knock out. And the fact that that isn't represented in the game very well, in my opinion, is a failure on the devs' part. And they need to definitely take the consequences of throwing punches and like overthrowing serious. So keeping that punch in a more realistic zone where you're not seeing like 800 punches or 700 punches or 600 punches or 500 punches every fight. Instead, you're maybe seeing 300, 200 around there more often than not. Even with like the higher cardio fighters, you're probably going to be seeing like at highest 360. So it's not like blitz 24/7 for like 3 minutes for 12 rounds, which is currently what we see. And some might say this might encourage the running issue, which is a bit more of a deep issue that can't be immediately fixed. But in all honesty, even though runners are annoying, this next problem definitely would, in my opinion, help a bit with the running issue, which is make clean punches do real damage. The big issue of why running, in my opinion, is so effective, especially in the previous version with the early access with the EA, is the fact that punches have never done real damage. So if you land 10 clean punches, they recover in like 2 seconds. There's no real long-term damage. There's no real risk. Like, if you look at your long-term damage in a fight, you could have an 8-round war where you've been blasting the opponent and they still have like 70% health left. Realistically, that should be down at 40%. And that's a big issue currently, is that the fact is if you're in a slug war or you're getting all these clean shots in, it doesn't do enough long-term permanent damage compared to what it should. And this obviously has been made even worse now by the fact that they've increased temporary health regeneration so massively, maybe a bit too much. Because while I agree originally it was too low, I feel like they've overshot its regeneration when it only needs to be like 5% quicker. Now it feels like it's 45% quicker or even 60% quicker depending on the fighter, which makes it really hard to keep damage going without just spamming power punches, which is actually part of the reason I believe power punches are so effective now. It's not just purely due to their stamina costs, it's also due to the fact that they just don't, like, there's no real long-term damage. So if you have a realistic fighter, and you're like, let's say you're landing 40 to 50% punches, which means per round, what's 40 to 50% of, that's like, what, 15 to 13 punches. Maybe you're a bit on the higher end, so you're landing 20%, like not 20%, you're landing 20 punches. Okay, if you're landing 20 punches per round on the opponent and you're landing clean, that in 8 rounds should, in my opinion, be enough to knock them out. If they're being that careless to allow you to hit over 15% punches every single round, yes, they should be knocked out. Especially if you're landing punches like hooks and uppercuts and you're timing them and you're going body, head, body, jab, overhand, and stuff like that. They should be knocked out, knocked down, rocked, in danger, at risk. And so landing clean punches needs to be more rewarded than it currently is. Because currently landing clean isn't rewarded. Instead, it's just fair to blast into a block like an idiot with Wilder or someone similar and just mash power shots, abuse that kind of stuff over and over, just going wee, like a complete idiot. So instead, you need to be rewarding counter punches, clean punches in general, aiming, waiting, baiting out punches and slamming clean, going low when someone's defending high, going high when someone's defending low, mixing it up. That needs to be more rewarded. So that would be making punches that actually land flush, no glancing, no into the block, none of that stuff, but directly on point, landing clean, need to be rewarded, especially if the opponent leans into the punch. If they're leaning or moving into the punch, that should do even more damage than usual. So that's generally how you make punches also, in turn with higher stamina costs, feel more dangerous. And this would also get rid of the reliance of power punches. Since if regular punches now, if you're throwing a power punch and they just go bop bop with 2 hooks in your face, and your power punches glance their block because it's too slow, then throwing power punches isn't going to be worth it anymore. Instead, you're going to be like, okay, I need to start throwing regular punches because this person knows how to avoid my power punches, and I can't rely on getting that one big bomb as much if this person's so good and I'm not really setting up the punch. It's like, this is what got Wilder in the end of his career, was that he just stopped setting up his punches well. He fell so in love with his power that he forgot he needs to set up the power punch. And even then, obviously, one punch from a power shot is still enough to drop someone, but it's not going to be as easy against someone who's expecting it if that's all you're doing. You need to set up and only throw out, like, generally you should only be seeing, like, in a fight, maybe 20 power punches at most. Probably even only 10 power punches in general, because it's just not something realistically you're going to throw that much unless you're ending a combination or you've just seen a big setup and you're like, I can get a clean flush power straight with Wilder in and drop my opponent because he's hurt. It's round 8, I'm down on the cards, I need that big drop to win the fight, because if I get this drop, either I'll manage to turn it back on points, he'll get up and he'll still be disorientated, so I can get another few shots in and drop him again, guaranteeing the win, or even get a flash KO because he's so hurt, and I'm just like, okay, jab, jab, power straight. Boom, he's out cold. And people would probably get less annoyed because there'll be a deliberate system on why this does more damage, on why this is more effective. Because you have set up the punch, you're clearly baiting them in, they've got hurt over time, you've landed clean, but you've not done it enough to win the fight, where most of their punches are a bit more mixed around and really going for point scoring, or they're playing a quicker guy who maybe doesn't have as strong hands. Meanwhile, you got that one devastating punch, and they know you've got that one devastating punch, so they have to be careful, and it's a failure on their part to be ready for that big straight to come in because they've allowed themselves to be lulled into a sense of security. That's generally how it should be seen in the game. Of course, this goes into the next subject perfectly, which is rewarding playing well. And I don't need to really go over this as much because I've already pretty much covered most of this, but there is a few extra details I need to go in. Since I've already gone over punches, landing clean, landing flush, using your stamina appropriately, there's also obviously landing accurately, where what is the recovery for it? So let's say stamina recovery when you land well. What is the reward for it? Let's say I throw 5 punches in a round because I'm a bit gassed and I need to recover, and all those punches land clean, so I get, like, let's say, a shockingly 100% accuracy rating. Oh my goodness, it's so perfect, 100% accuracy. Well, then I should get a big chunk of stamina back for that, because I've spent the entire round being defensive, taking the risk, letting you wail on me, and I've only really thrown to keep you off me. Then I should be rewarded, in my opinion, for doing so. I should get my stamina back, I should get my energy back, because I haven't really been doing much. Where you've been wearing yourself out and continuing to lose stamina. The issue currently is that you don't really get that reward. At least not with how the system's designed currently. Maybe if people didn't throw as much and need to throw as much, that might change that. But even then, it does feel like a lot of the stamina regen just isn't worth it. Because there is some times where you'll see people just get this massive second wind where they suddenly feel like they have 20 or 30% stamina back. And that's actually one of the issues with second wind, in my opinion, with how it works, is that it feels like it doesn't give you enough stamina back, and similar stamina based perks don't have enough, like, reward. Like, the ones that have costs, you can feel that. But the ones that have rewards on it, such as having less stamina cost on combos, or having higher stamina regeneration after a certain point, they don't feel like they do enough. So generally, just rewarding people playing well and being smart with their punches, being accurate, it continues on from the damage argument, where it's like, you gotta actually make sure the player sees an actual benefit to playing good to encourage them to play good. Like, if they land, like, throw only 5 punches, they land all 5, and then they don't get hurt at all, and they're, like, playing defensively minded, and then they see, like, maybe 10% stamina back, they might be like, oh my goodness, 8% health and 10% stamina, or 20% health because I've recovered, like, for 2 rounds doing this, and, like, a big chunk of stamina. That is perfect. That would encourage people to actually use their minds and actually think on their feet in a fight on what they actually need to play like. And so you might actually see people start playing more realistic because it's more beneficial, because in the end, people are going to gravitate towards the meta. So if you make the meta at least somewhat realistic, people are going to play more realistic, because that would be the meta. Like, throwing power punches constantly, willy-nilly, without care, is no longer the meta. People aren't going to play like that, because the meta might actually be playing smart now. You got to try and find that opening, so people are going to sort of be more patient, more careful, and they're going to look for that opening. They're going to look for that gap. And some might still come in aggressive, but even then, it's not going to be the dominant style completely anymore. Like, it might go from, like, 90% of fights or 95% of fights online to being, like, 65, which is like a 30% drop in the amount of fights that play like that, which is a massive, massive, massive difference. Of course, that's enough talking about, like, that particular subject, because there is obviously something on the opposite end of the spectrum, and that's defense. And I know I've sort of covered defense already, but I mean this in a different way, because there is an exploit that I see every person who's quotation marks good abusing company. Every time you see someone who is like 180 wins, 11 losses, or something similar, every single person who does that does the same thing. Swelling damage. They will abuse punches that do high swelling damage, and now all they'll do, power jab, they'll play someone with a quick power jab, and they'll just spam it. They'll spam power hook, power jab, power hook, power jab, and that's all they'll do, because swelling damage currently makes no sense. It builds up too quickly, and it doesn't recover quick enough. Like, if I spend 2 rounds, and I don't get a warning indicator at all for swelling damage, realistically, you think the swelling should go down. But that's not how it works. Instead, it literally just remains completely swollen up heavily for like 8 rounds in a row. And I've literally had this where I've literally got swollen in the 2nd round because the AI spammed power shots. Yeah, the AI does that. And then I literally spend like 6 rounds not getting hit, and then he hits me once and I get a warning for swelling, even though he's not hit my head at all. And that's absurd that you can retain swelling for that long, all because he clips you once. And that is honestly how it feels. It feels like you get clipped once, that immediately makes you... And with cuts, that makes a bit more sense. But with swelling, it shouldn't just balloon all the way back up because of one hit every single... Like, maybe occasionally, but not every single time should it just balloon instantly back to max off one jab that hits you not even on the same side of the face. It's completely ridiculous. So obviously, buffing swelling recovery would have to be a thing to do. So if you're not getting hit in the face on the swelling part, you should have quicker recovery. Because it is absolutely absurd currently that the most dangerous thing in the game is someone just spamming power jabs at you, trying to swell your face up. Or spamming power straights. And this is actually what I got with an Ali online. And I'm not sure if he Alt F4 because the game froze on my victory screen, so I couldn't actually collect my winnings. It was a player match as well. I don't get why people rage quit from player matches, but whatever. But no, I was constantly just sort of avoiding him because he was just spamming power straight, power straight. As soon as he saw that swell meter when I got warned by the ref, all he did was hook, power straight, hook, power straight, hook, power straight, hook, power straight, hook, power straight. That was all he was doing. For the entire, like, next, I think it was 3 or 4 rounds. It was like 3 rounds, I believe. It was like 2-3 rounds, around that. And it was insane because he was missing so many punches. Like, he was missing, hitting my block, chip damaging through blocks, not hitting the same side of the face. And the swelling just was not going down even by a percentile. It was absurd. So, yeah, definitely buffing, like, swelling recovery would be important because, in my opinion, currently swelling recovery is way, way too low. It makes it so ridiculously, stupidly overpowered. As soon as you get that indicator warning, you know you have to pretty much abuse every bug under the sun and it play in such a dumb way to avoid just instantly losing because the person starts spamming power punches as soon as they know you've got a swelling on your face. And that, in my opinion, it completely breaks the point of boxing if, like, it just becomes, let's abuse swelling every single fight. And it's becoming so much more common now. It's actually becoming more... I'm starting to see power straights be spammed and power jabs be spammed a lot more now as people realize how broken swelling damage is. So that's, like, obviously a big important... And that was actually one I added today because I almost forgot about it. And then I was like, wait, no, swelling's kind of broken. So on top of that, there is another thing that's kind of broken, which is blocking. Let's be honest here. Every punch bleeding through the block, whether it's the lean back hooks or the lean back jab or like power punches or whatever, all of them piercing through the block in the first few rounds is ridiculous. So I would say you definitely need a massive nerf to like block piercing, so making blocks actually usable is actually very important. Because remember when they said that blocks were going to become like weaker as the fight went on? Well, that's not true at all, because by round 4, even if you've taken, like, no damage to your block, and you've not really had to use your block much because you've been playing so smart, this guy can throw one power punch, and then boom, your block's gone. Because it just goes right through your block, it takes half your block health. And there's actually been moments where the AI just starts spamming the jab against me, and I take 0 damage to the block, and I just notice all of it's going to my head health. And then I sort of lower my block and put it back up, even though I literally blocked in reaction to the jab. And then suddenly it's hitting my block again. And it's just completely inconsistent and nonsensical that this happens. They need to make the block, in my opinion, I would say get rid of block bleed completely. Like, just get rid of it at this point. Make it so people actually have to mix up their highs and lows, and then maybe make it so if someone's got a weakened block, let's say their block's at like 20% health, then you can maybe have a little bit of block bleed. Or if they're using a certain style, maybe certain punches like an uppercut might pierce through. But it shouldn't be this thing where someone just goes in power hook, power jab, power straight, or lean back hook, lean back hook, lean back straight, lean back straight, lean back jab, to like glitch through your block, or they spam sidestep punches or backstep punches. That's absurd that that's allowed. That's absurd that they thought that was acceptable. And in my opinion, if you can't fix the mechanic in a reasonable amount of time, just remove it until you can. Because I don't think anyone's going to really care if block bleed was removed until you can fix it. Because it's literally a thing that everyone finds annoying currently, that actually cares about the game, who's probably actually going to buy the DLCs, who are actually going to be with the game long term, if you play your cards right. Having block pierce be such a overpowered mechanic is just asking for your game to die, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely getting rid of block bleed is important. It's very, very important. And it's probably one of the most fundamental issues currently, next to like stamina and damage. And swelling. So literally everything I've already mentioned, this is probably, in my opinion, on the same level as everything else. And none of these things are more important than the other. All these things need to be looked at. But block bleed is maybe not as fundamentally needed to fix, but it's still a massive issue that will become, if you fix everything previous, will become the top issue. It'll become the most noble issue, and everyone's going to be like, fix block bleed. So you might as well cover it now, because it's like, it's just ridiculous when someone can just spam through your block, and it doesn't even damage your block, it just damages you directly. It's such a stupid mechanic. Anyway, I believe that's sort of like a big chunk of all, like, we've already covered half of this. This is actually ridiculous. So I'm going to skip over a few things and save those for the end, because in my opinion, these are not really mechanical issues. So we're going to move back to mechanical issues. So I'm going to skip over these like 2 issues here and talk about them later. And we're going to talk more on stamina, since there is an issue with stamina beyond just drain. When you burn out your entire meter, there is a thing I call redlining. This is the red flash you get when you overthrow. So let's say you throw like 3 power punches in a row and then you get the red flash. During this, you're technically not meant to be able to throw power punches. In my opinion, that's not punishment enough, because there's no real consequence to that, because you just wait 1 second and then you can just throw another power punch. So it's not like there's any actual real punishment for redlining. In the previous version of the game, there used to be a bunch of punishments for redlining your character. You were more vulnerable to counter punches. You had slower punches in general. You were more vulnerable, so you took more damage. You were more susceptible to a flash KO, a flash knockdown, a flash rock. All of this was more common. So realistically, let's be honest here, it should be like that again. Maybe a bit more fine-tuned to be more realistic, because there were things like the stamina disparity issue, where if you had literally 1% of your like temporary stamina missing, for some reason you'll take like 5 times the damage, which was stupid. But generally, at least when you're in the red line state, there should be the same vulnerability. And it's weird that they just completely removed it, instead of like just fixing the issue of it happening too early and just make it so it's actually in the percentage it's meant to be in. I don't get why they didn't just do that, and instead they just removed it from the game, because now you just see sidestep spamming so they can throw at the same speed even though they got like 0 stamina and stuff like this from players, because there's no real punishment. Like, if you try and sidestep punch and you instead just do a slow gas punch, if someone goes power uppercut and you just drop immediately because you're at like 20% stamina and you just redlined 120% stamina and you're now out cold and you lost the fight because you wanted to try and be a bit cheesy and you played badly, that would definitely disencourage again more spam, since there's now actually a punishment for redlining, there's a punishment for missing, there's a punishment for playing like an idiot, which again is talking about how meta builds the way people play. If you want a good player base, you need to make the meta be a logical meta, because there's never going to be a way to completely cure the meta. And I almost knocked something over, sorry about that. But there's not going to be a way to cure meta players. But at least making the meta with stuff like this not be blitz a trillion punches even when you're low stamina will definitely be a very good way of balancing out the game. So having temp stamina and slow punches would be a actual issue when you are overthrowing. Definitely will be smarter than how it's currently done. I don't get why they changed this. This is one of the biggest changes that just makes me scratch my head. But that obviously leads us to what happens if you rock someone. Because currently there's a big issue with rocking someone where it just feels like it's so hard without spamming to rock someone. So you just sort of sit there going, come on. And then you start spamming power punches because you have infinite stamina temporarily. But even then you can't really rock them because they just walk backwards and they push spam. Well, simple. There's actually a very simple solution. Each time you get rocked in a round, so let's say you get rocked once. Okay, you have your max meter. Then you get rocked again. 10% maybe missing from your meter now. And then you get rocked again. Okay, now 30% missing from your meter. Now you get rocked again. Now there's 50% missing. You get rocked again. Now there's 70% missing. And it keeps going until it just flash knockdowns you. That's sort of how I would do it. So if you keep getting rocked over and over again, consistently, and you don't recover properly, and maybe you get rocked at the end of the round and then you have a minute to recover. Okay, going to the next round, the first time you get rocked, maybe there's 10-20% of your health missing in that rock. So you're back in that state because you haven't spent a round recovering and you've not been playing safe after being hurt the previous round. This would definitely make it so people can't just hold block and walk backwards if they aren't actually properly stopping themselves from getting rocked after they get rocked. So yes, this could risk a rock cycle, which is while making sure the defensive tools are better and making sure the game isn't just a spam fest, as I've said with all the previous things, that would disencourage the kind of spam we usually see to re-rock someone. Instead, someone might be like, okay, I've rocked him, I need to try and cut him off because he's going to try and retreat now, so I need to try and get within his range and sort of set up a clean 1-2-3 to get him back in that rock state and keep him under pressure. And so you're going to be like, okay, I rocked him, let's go 1-2 to the body because I want to sort of chip his health down a bit. Maybe get some body shots in because he's going to be blocking his head. So go to the body a bit to wear out that cardio of his so he has less stamina. Okay, now he's defending his body and he's recovered from the rock. Let's give him a nice 1-2 to the head. Wait a second, pause, go back to the body, and then big overhand to the head. He's rocked again. That sort of should be the kind of mentality you're having. It shouldn't just be winging step forward punches and side step punches and power punches into the block, hoping you take someone out, which is currently how it is. And that's unfortunate. So definitely having it so gradually you lose more health if you get rocked consistently in a row, and in addition making it so major health decreases quicker. Because currently I see people who get rocked 10 times within 3 rounds and then their major health turns out it's at 95%, and I'm like, what? Why is your major health at 95% after that? And that is a thing that's legitimately happened, and I just scratch my head. Or it's at 85%, or it's at 88%, and I'm just like, huh? I'll have fights where someone gets knocked down 3 times and then they still have over 70% major health. That's actually ridiculous. Your health should not be that high if you've been knocked down 3 times. It should be at 50%. Realistically, let's be honest here. Especially if you got knocked down in the final 3 rounds, or that third knockdown knocked you out and you haven't had a few rounds to recover, your major health should not be so high. It's ridiculous that it goes down so. And the thing is, in the previous version, it was in a better state. Not perfect, but it was in a better state where major health, again, stayed sort of in a realistic sense and went down realistically if you got rocked, if you got knocked down, if you were consistently eating punches. So I don't get why this got changed. It feels very bizarre. Again, it's another one of these choices, such as removing slow punches and vulnerability to redlining, that sort of just makes you, it just needed tweaks. It wasn't broken. Or at least it wasn't as broken as, let's say, the new mechanics are. It's not like it's the backslide uppercut spam that was in the previous version that they finally got rid of, you know? Of course, this isn't the only issues. Now we're going to go sort of to the final 3, which are things that are, in my opinion, the controversial stuff. These are sort of like the more, okay, people might disagree with it more than anything else. And the first one is, obviously, there's going to be a lot of dead air now in matches, because when you, like, change how stamina works, change how all this works, there's going to be a lot more dead air. Like, because currently it's at, what, 1.5 speed? That's still going to have, like, dead air in it. Maybe a little too much, so I would probably say put it to 1.8 speed instead. So just slightly speed up the rounds, you know. Just a little bit. Not massively, but a little bit to just mitigate the amount of dead air. Because there is going to be like this giant chunk of like maybe like 30 seconds to 45 seconds where people are just like, this is too long. This round feels like it's going forever. So just shrinking down that dead air by a teensy bit would probably make it so people aren't like as likely to just get annoyed by how long the rounds are going, because they're like, I can't throw because I'm going to get gassed, and I don't want to sit here forever because I'm playing a video game, I'm playing it for fun, and in the end, we do have to remember this is a video game. Realistically, people don't want to sit there and actually face sim time. There's a reason why in like other fighting games, people don't do realistic minutes, because it just feels like, whatever that was, my throat went weird. But as I was saying, like, people don't want to sit there and do realistic minutes, because that would be every single fight. If you brought back 12 rounds, just every single fight was done realistically, even if you skip the minutes in between rounds, that's going to be like 35 minutes per fight. People do not have that kind of time. Sometimes maybe they want to play like a few games, so just making it so it's a bit more bearable, in my opinion, would definitely be the way to go. So maybe it goes up to like 2.0 speed, just to make it so it doesn't feel like dead air is too big, because there's just not enough interesting mechanics currently in the dead air segment, like clinching, clinch fighting, posturing. Feinting isn't really well designed. Like, the way feinting's done is terrible currently. So making it so dead air isn't as like toxic to enjoyability in this game would definitely be a thing, by just speeding up the rounds a bit until you can add the mechanics in, and maybe even after, depending on it, to fill in that space. Because having dead air is probably the worst thing you can have, because there's a difference between the in-between phase, as I like to call it, the in-between action phase, where you sort of are posturing up, you're feinting, you're trying to get someone to bait into something, and just standing there doing nothing because you have no option. Like, this is sort of what I call an issue with a lot of modern fighters, is like the dead air feels more like you're trying to just avoid getting hit by an infinite one-shot combo. It's not actually because like you want to be there, or that you're actually thinking, or you're trying to bait someone into doing something. Instead, it's more like just the way the game's designed has these long periods of just pause artificially in place, because there's just no mechanics to add in there. And that is sort of an issue with definitely a lot of these 3D fighters, like the UFC games, where like there's like dead air, or like any sort of fighting game that's three-dimensional, like the 2K wrestling games. Sorry, my brain malfunctioned for a second. Like, there's this weird dead air where you're just like, you feel like you're doing nothing, and it definitely sort of ruins the game, because there's nothing filling that dead air. There's no way to quickly get through it. So definitely making it so the dead air isn't as obvious would definitely be the easiest way would be to speed up the rounds a bit. And I love how I have so much to say on this for some reason. It should have just been a quick thing, but I definitely want to go a bit more detail, because if I've gone half an hour already in this video, apparently I might as well go into more detail, you know? Now this goes into the next two, which aren't really controversial, but sort of like, I doubt any online player is going to care. This really only going to matter to people who play career mode or fight the AI. Maybe like you're just messing around, like this is more what's going to actually affect this. And these are two AI changes that I believe are important. So yeah, it's not the AI rant some probably want to see, but it's still some talk about the AI. So yay, you at the end of this video, you get the thing you want to hear about. And that is removing the AI's ability to input read. That is the first one, because there is this thing where the AI, you'll throw a punch and the AI will exactly know how to counter it. So they'll block, they'll dash backwards, they'll weave, they'll lean, or whatever. They'll like slip, they'll just do all of the perfect reactions, and it makes the, especially on higher difficulties, like Pro and Undisputed, and it just makes the AI sort of feel invulnerable. And with all the other issues added on top, it just makes the AI feel so toxic. Since I did an Undisputed difficulty fight, and I was playing Canelo, and I was facing Joe Kawasaki, and this dude hit in both fights, 800 like and 64, I believe it was, and 900 and something. So he almost hit 1,000 punches in a 12-rounder. And the only reason he was so hard to put away was because, one, when I rocked him, it was nigh impossible to knock him down. And then when I obviously was trying to hit him in the first place, he would just always know where I was going, always be able to throw his punch first, always know when I was dropping my guard. And it was actually a thing I really noticed was when I dropped my guard, he would immediately come in with a perfect punch, like a power shot right down the canister. And with artificial stats as well, so that's another thing, remove the artificial stats. Like, those two combined were just terrible. Like, artificial stats just making his power shots delete, like, 3/4 of my health bar in one hit. And then, like, also the input reading, so he knew when I lowered my guard, he knew where I slipped. He knew everything, he knew what punch and how to counter it perfectly. It just made it an unbearable chore to play. So definitely lowering that down massively to be a more reasonable degree would definitely bring back some bearability to fighting the AI on higher difficulties. Because I don't want to fight the AI on intermediate, you know? And intermediate's toxic enough because, again, it very blatantly input reason has artificial stats. But I don't want to fight an intermediate. I want to fight around maybe pro or undisputed difficulty. But with the way it's currently designed, it doesn't feel fun to fight. And that, obviously, talking about AI, this is talking about AI spam, really. So this is weave spam, dodge spam, AI aimbot. Because, yes, the AI literally has better accuracy than you do. Where his punches that shouldn't connect do connect, and they just seem to warp to hit you. And then sometimes he has like an invisible field around him that makes your punches missing. So this is generally just, the AI shouldn't be weaving constantly, he shouldn't be slipping constantly, he shouldn't be dodging constantly, he shouldn't be like aimbotting every single punch, he shouldn't have this weird magnetic field around him that prevents your punch that blatantly should connect from connecting. And this, combined with the previous point, would definitely make the AI a lot more accurate to life, because he should not have like 60% accuracy every single round when he's throwing like 100 punches per round. That's outrageous. That's insane and ridiculous. There is no universe where that makes sense. So definitely making it so the AI doesn't have all these weird effects around them would definitely improve their design philosophy and the characterization of them. And then you can start working on their fighting styles a bit more in the next update, where you make their fighting styles a bit more to life, and maybe make each type of archetype and punch style have their own unique effects. So maybe someone has traditional too. Your hooks are very slow to the head, so maybe you might see more jab straights from those kind of AI and hooks to the body instead of like hooks to the head. So, or if you're using a general traditional, they might be a more boxer puncher. Or if you're using Ali style, you might see more jabs come in, like lots of jabs just snapping out, and maybe some body hooks, and like some uppercuts. That should generally be how the styles are done. And then, of course, the way they implement those kind of punches that they will more generally throw would be affected by the archetype. So if they're a counter puncher or an outfighter, they might just step on the outside and wait for you to come in and try and snap you as you come in and circle around you and counter punch more often. If they're a boxer puncher, they might stand more in the mid-range and mix between counter punching and aggressing, sort of like generally how you see a lot of fighters fight. If they're a slugger, they might come in and just sort of sit against you, trying to snap in an occasional punch, and sort of just sit against you, maybe shove you back into a corner if they see you're close to the corner and try and trap you and just slug. Or a swarmer, they might come in and rapid fire a few punches, then they might go static and sort of more defensive for a bit, and then rapid fire again. And that's sort of how you would see it. That's generally just how, but that would be for a future update. I'm just saying, like, if you fix the AI issues, the invisible field, the aimbots, the spam, the input reading, all of this, it definitely would make it so when you want to actually improve the AI's logic, the AI is in a state where people won't be like, now the AI is just a broken mess. You know, putting the AI in a state where it's actually easier to improve is always what you should do first. Anyway, that said, that's the end of this video. I could yap on more. I could zap and zip and go wee wee woo for the next 20 trillion years, probably. Like, I did not mean for this video to be like nearly 40 minutes. It'll probably actually hit the 40 minutes by the time I've done this outro, jeez. But the point I'm making is, like, it's like, these are fundamental issues, yeah? These are not actually hard to fix. Like, they take a while to describe when you're actually going into detail of every single part, but implementing, it's like, these are very simple mechanics. These are mechanics which are purely statistical changes and bringing back things you already had in the game, and removing things that make no sense, and general balancing. It should not take you to halfway through December to do this. I'm sorry, that is absolutely outrageous. It should be done within the first week of November. And I don't think people are going to really wait till December. And if the December update fails, they might never come back. Because they'll be like, well, these people are taking a bit of the mick, you know? They're taking a bit of the silly on us. We aren't going to waste time. We're not going to buy their DLC. We're not going to play their game. We're going to go play Call of Duty. We're going to play maybe NFL. We're going to play Tekken. We're going to play, like, Monster Hunter. We're going to play maybe the Warhammer Space Marine. We might play some Wukong or Elden Ring, or insert any other game you could think of. Like, we're going to play maybe some Dragon's Dogma 2 or whatever. Like, just insert a game name and they'll probably go to that. They'll play like Battlefield or something. That's the point I'm making. You need to get this done immediately, as quick as possible. You need to crunch and you need to focus down. You can't just be taking these long breaks and, like, these long checks. And even if it's, like, just PC being updated, you could be like, we're testing stuff on PC. Console players, just wait. We want to make sure the update's perfect. Here's the showing of PC players saying this update's good. So just give us time to get it confirmed on, like, console so we can give it to you. That would definitely bring back faith, in my opinion, from players. Because that's, like, players can be very unforgiving. If they see a game's got a bad launch, there's only, like, maybe one game I can name in recent time that came back from that, and that was, like, No Man's Sky, and that was a lot of work to bring that game back from the corpse, you know? So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my ideas. Again, all the stuff I've talked about here will be in shorthand in my note form in the the comment section. It'll be the pinned comment. Check that out. Please give your opinion on this stuff, because I do like hearing more ideas and more thoughts. And make sure this video gets out there. I don't like doing this, but it's sort of required on YouTube. But please do share this video, like it, comment on the video. Get it out there, because if more people hear this message, if more people hear about how to fix the game, even if it's just the stuff in the description and you go into a bit more detail about, like, the issues and how to fix them, you definitely, and get that message out there. Use this video as a platform to make your own videos, your own comments, your own, like, discussions, and get this into the dev's face and be like, you can fix this game. It's not hard. We're not asking for the world. We're asking for basic things. Like, that's, like, really important, because it's not purely about, like, making my channel big. It's about making a game succeed, since it's the first proper, you could argue, AAA boxing game in forever. And if it fails, well, that's going to be kind of depressing, let's be honest here. So anyway, with that said, have a great day, and I'll see you around. Peace out. Peace.